So the next step in our process, as it was yesterday, is to basicify this. So we'll just verify that it is currently acidic, because it's an acid solution. And I'm going to be adding 6 molar sodium hydroxide to neutralize it. It will take a lot less 6 molar sodium hydroxide. So I'm using a 10 milliliter graduated cylinder this time instead of a 50. I measured out about 4 milliliters. And I've got my 25 milliliter Erlenmeyer to store my pipette in. So as yesterday, I'm going to stir this while I add the sodium hydroxide solution. And you can see that there's a little bit of solid forming right at the point where the sodium hydroxide goes. That's the insoluble tryptamine. And I will know that I'm done when that solid stays and doesn't immediately dissolve again. Right, so you can see that now I've got some cloudiness. I suspect I'm still somewhat acidic. Yep. So we'll add a little bit more. Definitely tryptamine precipitate forming now. I've added 2.8 milliliters of the 6 molar sodium hydroxide. And I'm mixing well, and we're quite strongly basic. So that can sit aside and settle. We'll eventually cool that in an ice bath, and then we will let that we'll get as much as possible out so we can filter it. I'm going to go ahead and rinse this guy. Sodium hydroxide out. So now I want to do the same thing to neutralize our basic solution. Get a fresh one of those just in case there's a little bit of acid in there, or a little bit of base in there rather. And I'm going to measure out some 6 molar hydrochloric acid. I've measured out about 3.5 milliliters. Expect that's going to be enough. So we can stir this around and just verify that it is indeed on the alkaline side, right? But not far on the alkaline side because sodium citrate is not very basic. And then we're going to stir it while we add the acid, and you can see again, right, the precipitate is forming just like it did before. because cinnamic acid has limited water solubility. More water solubility than tryptamine. But all of these compounds have limited water solubility. So I had 3.5. I've added right around 2 milliliters of the 6 molar hydrochloric acid. And I expect that that will be enough to make it fairly strongly acidic. It's acidic. Not strongly acidic, but it's acidic. There's less dramatic changes. Definitely got some solid there that can be extracted. Yeah, I think that's acidic enough. We can dispose of the rest of this. With the pH paper. So this is going to go back into the separatory funnel. But first we're going to add the methyl terpyl ether. And we're going to do 2 successive, again, 15 milliliter extractions. To get that cinnamic acid back in the MTBE, and then we'll dry that using the anhydrous sodium sulfate in the Erlenmeyer flask that's labeled CA back there. Same one I used yesterday. So, a little bit of water in the sep funnel that I had rinsed before. And I'll give that a good stir. Cinnamic acid should go into the organic layer. And if we're lucky this time, it's not contaminated with a bunch of vanillin. Making sure the stopcock is closed. That around a little until the pressure release is finished. The aqueous layer is going to get returned to this beaker, and the organic layer is going to be moved into the cinnamic acid flask. And then we're going to extract that aqueous layer one more time with another 15 milliliters of MTBE. And I might as well use the MTBE to rinse that beaker just in case there's a little bit of cinnamic acid in there. You'll notice that there's a little bit of liquid. You can kind of shake that around to get it back in the sep funnel. And then we'll let those layers separate. And that's it for the separatory funnel. We don't need that anymore. These just had a little bit of strong acid and strong base from the end of the pipette in them. So I'm just going to rinse those now. They won't need to be scrubbed out with soap. And I'm waiting for those to settle and throw away the pH paper. So we've neutralized the two extracts to regenerate the neutral form, the free base of tryptamine, which is crystallizing, and we'll be able to filter, vacuum filter. And we've neutralized the cinnamic acid, going back to the free acid, which we've now taken into our MTBE layer, re-extracted. I don't recommend that you try this. I'm just going to draw the aqueous layer directly off into the sink, since I know I'm going to throw it away anyway, and I'm pretty confident that I can accomplish not losing my organic layer in the process. You'd probably be better off doing it into a beaker and then disposing of it from the beaker. Usually it's not necessary to wash the separatory funnel out with soap and water. Sometimes there's a little bit of residue on the tip, so it might be worth using an organic solvent just to get that residue off the tip. But generally, when you're using a separatory funnel for an extraction, you're not worried about absolute purity of your material anyway. So usually I'll just clean the separatory funnel by rinsing it thoroughly with water and putting it away without further washing. So we have our MTBE solution of cinnamic acid, and we just need to add some anhydrous sodium sulfate to that. To let that dry. It'll take a little bit more drying agent for this than for the vanillin, because we didn't do that saturated sodium chloride wash. What we're looking for is a clear solution, no cloudiness, and some freely flowing drying agent. And we'll set that aside and let it continue to dry. So now I have my tryptamine crystallizing in the bottom of this beaker, which I will isolate by vacuum filtration. And I have my vanillin solution and my cinnamic acid solution, hopefully, in the two Erlenmeyer flasks, which will need to be rotovac down.